can hear you.
Lovely. Okay, if I get too loud, I have a very loud voice. Just cover your ears and I'll know to step back. I'm very nervous. I think he wanted me to start first so that the bar would be set low and everybody else would rise above it. But I'll start with my poems that appeared in Nostos. And I'll just briefly explain the first one I'm going to read. It's called During the Drought. It was composed on November 9th, 2016. Not an important day at all in American politics. And I wrote it because I was teaching at a high school at the time. And I went to the high school on that day, the first morning, and one of my young students who is LGBT ran up to me crying. He was very, very scared. So I wrote this poem as kind of a rallying cry to find strength in this difficult time. During the drought. The desert gate, a gray dust ocean, teeming with, all things considered, strangely resilient creatures. Crepuscular, they creep out when it is safe, evening and dawn, dousing water where others find none. Armored things, scaled things, venomous things, things with teeth and claws and a will to live. Cactus blossoms exploding into color in the dark, proving the best beauty blooms for itself. We must become the desert creatures, finding what we can to sustain ourselves. Dry times teach us thirst is both a lack and a purpose.
There's a coffee. Be careful with the coffee.
And this poem, I'll explain it after I read it to you. It's called Noumenon, which, if you're familiar with Kantian philosophy, is the idea of the thing in itself. We can only perceive the idea of something. We can't actually see what it is. So it's also called Having My Breast Implants Removed. So, Dr. Aesthetics, open me up, unbeauty me. I tire of crying lust leeches from my skin. Slice here, grasp, elephantine dewdrops. Pinch, pluck away plastic sex appeal. Breast cumple, collapse, raisins in the sun. Shiny, writhing black pearls drop from skin to floor, soon replaced by blooming ladybug carapaces and a deflated sense of self. I peel away the layers of posturing, the jig, amble, and lisp. Flay open my chest in the name of authenticity, or something like it, until all that remains is empty, puckered skin. And if I haven't made you sufficiently uncomfortable enough, these are the elephantine dewdrops that I carried in my body for many, many years. Very heavy weight, philosophically and literally. You can touch them if you want to. And if that didn't make you uncomfortable, now you're really about to be uncomfortable with this poem. I don't know, have any of you heard of John Wilmot, the second Earl of Rochester? So he was a libertine poet of the 1600s. He helped foster Opera Ben, who was one of the first novelists, and he was infamous for being extremely inappropriate. So this poem I wrote specifically for this reading, so glad there are no children present. It's called The Unbounding Creativity of Mankind. In black Sharpie on a bathroom stall, in chalk next to the hopscotch, on the hard plastic of the bus seat, graffiti on a passing train car, in a crop circle on the outskirts of London. And now, inches from my feet, some aspiring Michelangelo rendered this masterpiece. Shakespeare once said, that Hamlet once said, "What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty." And here, in spray paint, on the sidewalk next to the bus stop, some man used all of his infinite faculties to render the ugliest part of himself. This one is sad, droopy, it seems, but the artist demonstrates an eye for detail. Little sprigs of hair jut from the perfect spheres, which I assume to be cullions, godly orbs, nothing like the saggy, wrinkly chew gum of all the specimens I've seen. And when I realize I am sharing air with an artistic genius, I wonder, what if my link of knowledge is completely wrong? What if everything I know is wrong? Is it phalluses or phalli? This is how I know I've encountered true greatness, for the greatest will push us to question our perceptions. And question I did. This representation pushed my mind to bound through space and time to consider the ancient Romans who used such symbols to point men towards brothels. And I wondered, in the age of Craigslist, Redbook, Grindr, and Tinder, what drives men today to create such art? And why is this inclination lacking in women? I mean, imagine, if you will, an alternate dimension in which labia decorated every surface. Imagine you open your 9th grade history textbook to page 69 as the teacher dictated, only to find a giant vulva staring at you from the page. Then again, I suppose a vulva doesn't carry the same weight of symbolism. From a marketing standpoint, it needs better branding. It could be confused with a leaf, a flower, a taco, an eye, a Georgia O'Keeffe. It could be anything, or nothing. The mantula, on the other hand, is immutable, global, relatable to at least 49% of the population. And perhaps, like the Romans using it as a signpost, this graffiti too is a signpost of sorts, a marker, a warning. Look upon this work, ye virile, and despair. Mark my decline, young men, beware. What sun rises now will soon downward turn. From nothing we come, to nothing we return. And that poem, it was the 3rd penis I'd seen drawn that day, just walking through the world, and I just lost it. Okay, so some little girls dream of getting married. Other little girls dream of becoming president. When I was a little girl, I dreamed of growing up and making a group of strangers in a bookstore extremely uncomfortable. I think I've done that. And since we're on the subject of feminism and men, I wrote this poem called Flowers, much more pleasant. Men label some flowers beautiful, others weeds. Some they fertilize, others they poison. But the wildflower they love most of all, she vexes them with her autonomy. They think it the highest compliment to rip off her head, sniff it, and cram it in a vase with the heads of all her sisters to show off to guests. Aren't my flowers beautiful? And finally, now that we've gone through the threshold of vaguely inappropriate to outright bitter, I'm going to end with flash fiction, and it was inspired by the wildfires of October 2017, a true story that I've since turned into flash fiction, and it seems extremely prescient given our current conditions. It's called The Water is Fine. Come with me, Martha. He reached his hand out to her from the first step of the pool. She grasped his fingers, hers shaking from the Parkinson's. As he pulled her into the water, fully clothed, his own arthritic joints aching, he could not help but think of their wedding night. It was 6 decades ago, a few weeks after he had come home from the war. Then he had been too shy to dance in front of everyone. He never could move quite right with that damn prosthetic. It was still too new then. His leg wobbled, and he felt ashamed. But she had grabbed both of his hands in hers and smiled up at him, her blue eyes twinkling. Come on in, she purred. The water's fine. Suddenly his fear of dancing dissipated. She had that effect on him, of making him fearless. They spun and spun around the dance floor, his hands on her waist, hers on his shoulders, as Elvis Presley crooned about not being able to help falling in love. He tucked a strand of her long brown hair behind her ear and kissed her that night for the first time, to the spirited applause of both their families. All felt cyclical as he now, decades later, gently lowered her frail body into the water so that her white nightgown floated up around her like a halo. It was almost as if they were dancing, her arms around his neck as the flames swallowed the trees, the hillside, and their home, embers sizzling into the water around them. It was almost beautiful. "It's going to be okay," he cooed, though he knew it was not. "The water is fine." He tucked a sodden gray curl behind her ear. She coughed weakly. As the smoke grew thicker and thicker, blurring the orange glow of the wildfire, the wind swirling the walls of smoke and flames around them, glowing ashes fluttering like singed butterflies belched from the darkest depths of hell, he hummed the song from their wedding night in her ear, singing the last lines. "For I can't